Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach, and the much anticipated team reveal of Shorty Superstars is here. A lot of people have been asking me to do a team reveal for some time. It's not always something I do, but it was overwhelming the amount of comments I got to do it. As you can see down the bottom right there, I am doing it on the Wednesday, so bear that in mind. So not privy to any teams for round one just yet, but that's pretty much just for rookies really. Some of these guys might be placeholders, but nonetheless, my structure and premiums in particular and on-field players are pretty much set. So without further ado, we'll get stuck into it and reveal Shorty Superstar. So we'll work our way over here. So here we go, here's my team. I'll give you a quick little look at that. You can scour your eyes over it for a couple of seconds, then I'll take a look into each line and zoom things up a little bit so you're not straining the pupil. But we'll go into the back line for starters. Well, actually for starters, I'll show you how much Shorty's got left in the bank, which might be a talking point. You can see 287k in the bank. So look, first off, I'll address that, I suppose. A lot of people do say, how much money should I have left in my bank? Should I have 50k? Should I have 300k? Is there a set number? And there isn't a set number at all. The salary cap is just there for you to get as many players into your side that you're comfortable with that can score well, and doesn't really matter how much you have left over. The main thing is you don't want to sacrifice points just for money in the bank. So the way it's worked out for me, I'll work my way into it a little bit when I talk about the midfield, but there is no set number of dollars to have left over, that's for sure. All you want to be having is a solid lineup that can score you points, and you're not going to be losing any points to other teams just because you're saving a bit of cash, i.e. amount of premiums in your side and things like that. So I'll probably talk about that a little bit more when we talk about the midfield. But first up, the back line. Got the three premiums. I think Taylor Adams will be one of the top defenders for the whole season. So I think he was a pretty clear-cut decision for me. He's very popular, and rightly so. Played pure midfield for the Pies, so certainly locking him in there. Rory Laird, likewise, he might get a little bit of midfield time at the Crows, but one of the best rebounding defenders in the league and just racks up possessions at will. So I think we could see him really go big this season and be one of the top defenders alongside Shaw and Doherty and Adams for that matter. And he's been in a lot of sides, basically a lock for most. Zach Tui is certainly one that has created a bit of discussion. I really do see him. Of course, it's no surprise I'm a Cats man with the jumper, but I have watched him closely, and he's the sort of player we need. And I do see him being that player that we just go out of our way to really give it to and get the ball into his hands, which is fantastic for SuperCoach points. He's a great user of the ball. His JLTs, he's been pretty impressive, and he's really shown that he's the man. We want the ball in his hands out of the back line, and I think he'll have a lot of points by his name as the season goes on. I think he'll be he will be our main rebounder, along with sort of Thurlow and Mackie to a lesser extent. But Tui's the man. We want it in his hands. He's a great ball user and can sneak forward to get a goal from outside 50. So I'm pretty confident in that selection. At first, I sort of thought a bit about it, but I really do see him potentially going around the 95. I understand that he's never done anything near that for his entire career, but a change of scene. He is the main man coming out of the back line. Doesn't have to contend with Simpson or Doherty or anything like that. So I'm pretty comfortable with that selection. Of course, Hampton at D4. He's a lock. Wherever he fits into your back line, everyone's going to have him, and rightly so. And then the four rookies. So, look, Otten, Stewart, Vickers-Willis and Malikan. I think those first three will stay on my side. They look very likely to be named, particularly the two on field. And the final one, Malikan at the moment, it could be a number of guys. He's more so a placeholder at the moment. It'll just depend on what the teams come out as. So I think I'm pretty happy with that structure. I feel as if it's easier to upgrade in the back line. I think that Shaw and Doherty are a little overpriced. They will come down. And I feel like with Adams and Laird, I'm not going to be losing a stack of points. So I feel like that's a reasonable setup. And I do think that I can definitely snap those guys up, as in Shaw and Doherty, quite early. And you will probably notice there are a few popular premiums missing from my side. That is somewhat of a punt, but I am confident. It's just not a gut feel. I do feel like it's a pretty good decision. In the midfield, of course, rolling with the 6 premiums. No Dangerfield, you'll see. bloody look out. People have been getting stuck in me about that, and I guess I'll address it off the top. I've addressed it a lot, and I understand it is a risk. Certainly it's a risk, and it's not to say I don't think Danger will have a good year. I just feel he'll probably average 120 as opposed to your 132. So I do think we'll be able to get him at a cheaper price, and that's where my cash in the bank comes into play. Originally I had Pendlebury. This is how the whole cash in the bank came to play. It's only been something that's happened in the last week. Originally had Pendlebury, then the Achilles happened. I know he looks fine, but if he just hurt a hammy or a quad, I would have been pretty happy. But an Achilles worries me. It does concern me. They're niggling injuries. I know he's training okay, but I have concerns. So he got the boot. And then I thought, Dane Beams is tearing it up. It's hard to say no to him. Beams was just a late inclusion into my side, as a lot of you would have seen in my other videos. So all of a sudden, I felt the best option was Pendlebury down to Beams, and that left me with all this cash. And because we largely do go rookies and guns, it is hard to take a jump up with that extra 300k. Just quickly looking at the rest of my side, 300k, where would you use it? I'm pretty happy with that back line. No point getting rid of Hampton. You might argue the case, you might get rid of Tui for a Shaw or something like that, but as I said, quite happy with Tui. Where would you use it in the midfield? Nowhere else. Some would probably argue maybe go Tom Mitchell or Rocky to Dangerfield, take your point, but it's not what I'm doing. Ruck, I'm pretty content with that in the forward line. Some might want to dish out Caddy a little bit or upgrade one of these mid prices, but again, who are the clear-cut forwards that are going to be premiums? It's hard to pick them. So all of a sudden I was left with the thought of, well, maybe it's all right to have around 300k left in the bank because I don't feel like I'm losing points. I have a lot of premiums in there. My structure didn't change that much because Beams, while he gave me 250 odd K or whatever it is still a premium numbers player. So I feel the added bonus with that money in the bank is that I can pounce on a Dangerfield or a Shaw or a Pendlebury if he fires up very, very soon. I don't have to wait for a rookie to really get on the rise. I can probably, there might be a rookie that really elevates himself quickly and then I can get some cash for that and have stacks of cash in the bank to work around. I understand Dangerfield's a must, but I feel like with that cash in the bank and the fact that I can get to him probably within 5 rounds rather than maybe 7 or 8 rounds, because I think it will be a disadvantage if I can't get a hold of him by, say, round 7 or 8. But if I can get a hold of him by round 5 or something like that, where he will drop, barring unbelievable first month, which he's capable of, he will certainly drop. And I just feel quite confident that having that money in the bank, as well as a generation of cash in other areas, that I will be able to snap him up quite quickly at a lower price and have that money ready to go without wasting too many other trades on rookies as they appreciate. So that's the thinking there. I feel like I didn't lose any points with Pendlebury down to Beams, but I do have stacked more money in the bank, so I felt confident with that move. As for the actual names, Hanbury, Treloar, Rockcliffe, Fife, Mitchell. Hanbury, of the 3 Sydney mids, I've gone him. A lot are probably going to Kennedy, but I am a massive Hanbury fan. It's just a personal opinion. I really like the way he can win on the inside and then burst out of stoppage as well, and he's capable of kicking a goal. Burn up the pre-season fitness-wise, and I think he's looking good for another big season. Treloar, well, he's become more and more popular. I actually thought, 3 months ago that he might be somewhat point of difference at around sort of 10% of sides, but that certainly hasn't proven the case. He's up to around 20 odd, maybe pushing towards 25, but rightly so. I think a lot of people are agreeing that probably he may take the mantle, a bit of a changing of the guard from Pendlebury. So again, I think that's likely. He's been a gun scorer throughout his whole career, even as a giant at a rookie price, and I think he'll again pay us dividends. Rockcliffe is the most point of difference player in my side on the field. He's in about 6% of teams, which does rank in at the lowest ownership of all my players, and I'm quite happy with that selection. I understand the risk. A lot of people are more so on the Zorko bandwagon and everyone's on Beams, but look, I'm happy with Rockcliffe. I think the only question stopping him from going around 110 to 120 even is his body, and he has been a little bit unlucky with certain impact injuries, and his pre-season's been great. He's been given a great endorsement from the coaching staff. He seems happy in his environment now, which has been different to previous seasons. So Rocky, his scoring ability is up there with the very best. You know, he's averaged 130 before. His back end of last year was unbelievable. He's capable of scoring enormous numbers, and I feel like he could be a really good selection. Probably finish in the top 5, I'm hoping. 5 speaks for himself. He'll be in many a side. He's the most popular player in the game, and rightly so. Tommy Mitchell, I really do feel like he could go around the 110 mark. I think he's shown us with the JLT that he'd be the Hawks' main man at the bottom of the stoppage, dishing it out, plenty of handballs, plenty of contested possessions and clearances, and that's a recipe for big points. You know, hasn't quite got the opportunity at the Swans. He'll come to Hawthorn. He'll be the main man in the contest, get plenty of minutes, plenty of centre bounces and stoppages, and I think he just thrives in that. You know, he's not the quickest bloke. He's not going to take a screamer, but he does that as good as anyone. So I really do feel like we'd see a big breakout. It doesn't have to even be enormous, just 7 or 8 points per game, and I think we'll definitely see that. And he's somewhat, I think about 11% aside, so somewhat point of difference, which I've been pleased about because there had been a bit of noise. Dane Beams, I was slow to come round to him, that's for sure, but I do feel like his JLT and what he served up there made him too hard to ignore. And the stars just aligned a little bit with Pendlebury going down, and the option was, well, look, Beams is just staring me in the face, you've got to pick him. Only question mark on him and his body, that's the only one, but his point scoring is fantastic. We know when he's out there, he's a premium mid, scoring between 111, 115, you know, on average, that's where he tends to go. So he's a lock for many. Took me a while to come around to it, but he's in my side. Sam Powell-Pepper, one of the most popular players in the game, rightly so. Absolute beast of a young player, just racking up possessions and contested possessions as well. As good as any young player we've really seen in recent time. And then rounding out the rookies, look, Hibbard probably get named, Mitchy Hibbard, so you would hope that he is. If not, we'll just change him for a type that will be there. Wigg, Pickett, Parfitt. Now, I'm pretty confident on Parfitt being named. Pickett looks pretty much a certainty, and Wigg we'll just have to wait and see. So look, you'll also notice I've got no O'Meara, no Swallow. I have done a video on those guys, including Beams as well, and player profiles on every one of them. So if you want more in-depth, certainly get along and check those out. But I just don't feel like they fit my structure. I'm quite happy when I look at that midfield to see 6 premiums, and I didn't want to bug around with too much mid-price because I did a bit in the forward line. You know, Tui, a little bit mid-price-ish, a little bit of an unknown about him. I didn't want to stuff around in the midfield. Swallow was never really in contention. I don't think I can trust his body enough like the other guys, and his scoring ability won't match it to an O'Meara. Where O'Meara, look, I've said it a million times that I just don't feel confident enough in the young guy's body. He hasn't played a game for 2 years. I know he's looked great through JLT, but backing it up home and away season after home and away season game, it takes it out of you. It's a brutal game. It only takes a bit of a niggle or a bit sore on your Monday for him to, you know, Hawks cop a 6-day break or head into WA. Could be very easy for him to be rested. So I just wanted to play it safe. He's very popular, understandable, but personally, I feel safer and more comfortable bypassing him and just sticking it with your premiums. Felt far more comfortable with that. So, Ruck division, of course, Gawn and Goldstein have quickly gone out of favour a little bit. Gawn is still popular, but his ownership has dropped off a bit with the rise of Jakey Spencer, looking like he will be named round 1. Of course, we'll find that out in a couple of hours' time, or at least when you're watching this, probably be released Thursday afternoon at some stage. So I've gone with Grundy. Now, I feel like a combination of natural progression and improvement in his game will see him average premium numbers, as well as his back end of last year. If you just look at his stats in the second half of last season, they're extremely impressive. So it shows he's capable of doing it in parts of the season, and I think with another pre-season under his belt, that natural improvement, because he is still young, particularly in ruck terms, I think we should see him really push the envelope to a premium ruckman. And he's so mobile as well, which I really like. He's not a one-trick pony in regards to scoring points. So I felt I went him over Goldstein, who has an interrupted pre-season. And like Gawn, there's a bit of discussion about how much of a sole ruckman he will be. Of course, I was red hot on Stephen Martin as well at the start of pre-season. I've just sort of waned on him. I've more so gone with Grundy, just a little bit more confident. Archie Smith lurking around as well. And Martin didn't have a fantastic pre-season either. Just felt more comfortable with Grundy. Even though that little corked calf couldn't have been much because he did play the following week. Sandilands, he's a lock in many sides. We understand the risk, but of course the option with Nankervis, as you see in the forward line, to swing that guy with Cameron, potentially, could be anyone who's a dual position player in that ruck division towards the lower end of the price. If Cameron's named, I'll probably go with him. Even if he is, I'll just assess it. If he's just going to churn out 40s and 50s, it's probably not worth it. But we'll wait and see. Probably if he's playing, you probably do go with him because you never quite know what a guy can score. So he's there for the moment. And Sandilands probably speaks for himself. I think if we didn't have a quality forward ruck that we could put forward in Nankervis or even Ryder for some, I don't think we could do it. I don't think we could justify it. But the fact that we've got clear coverage for him, insurance that we're comfortable with there, he's definitely worth the risk. His reward is a massive reward. He could average upward of 100, make you plenty of cash, as well as scoring at a premium sort of price tag and scoring output at 308k. So fantastic to see. And look, Nankervis has made that decision much more easy for us. And finally, the forward line. I think Dalhouse is a lock. Everyone's agreeing on that. Straightforward. And I personally think McRae's an absolute lock as well. I think he's probably in about 18-19% of sides last time I looked, but I personally think he is a lock. I think he can definitely get up to around that 100 mark, maybe in a couple of points more. Check out his final series. He scored fantastically, has shown that he can average 99, 100 before, and he's only 3 to 4 years older now or somewhere around that. So he'll be far more established as a player. I think we'll see close to a career best season from McRae, and he's not going to get that much attention through the Dogs midfield. Yes, of course, he might get pushed to a flank at times or out to a wing. He's probably not going to get as many contested possessions as a Libba or a Dalhouse or a Bont, but he certainly racks up big numbers. He's an uncontested type, but he's a great user of it on that short 45 kick. He does that really well on the left boot. And I think he's certainly capable of 100 average quite comfortably. So those two dogs, I'm not concerned at all that there's two Bulldogs in the side, in the forward line. Not concerned at all. So I reckon we'll want them by the end of the season, and I think they're reasonably priced. So no point feeling like they'll get any lower. May as well lock them in now. Josh Caddy. Now, he was red hot among people probably a month ago after looking pretty good in the JLT. But since it's sort of cooled off. I think his last JLT wasn't too impressive. I think about 13 touches, didn't look too great. Yeah, he might play forward a little bit. That might be likely, but look, he's gone to the club for midfield minutes, more opportunity. That's what he's there for. The Richmond have a reasonable midfield. You've got Presti, you've got Cochin, you've got Dusty, you've got others in there, Miles as well, and Alice. And again, I've probably left one or two out, but I think Caddy, as far as inside midfielders, he's right up there. Martin Rott play forward a little bit more, use his damaging ability there. So I'm pretty comfortable with Caddy. Nothing else has really jumped out at me. Look, it's tempting to maybe go down to a Higgins or something like that, but I was a little concerned to have too many mid-price types. And I think when you get that many mid-prices in there, it starts to become really risky, as well as the whole team. I mean, when you have one line that's full of risk there, not to mention a few other risks you take throughout your field. I made the big call in the Caddy profile, player profile, that he'll average 100 and be a top 5 scorer. I do stand by that. I think he'll be a very good scorer, but my confidence probably isn't as high as it was a month ago, just because of that JLT performance, which, it does raise a little bit of concern. So, but I'm going to stick with him. I can't see any better options. Look, I'll assess it, that's for sure. But at this stage, he is probably a man who could be potentially taken out for someone else. But I'm pretty confident in my structure at the moment. So, you might upgrade to maybe a Tom Lynch or someone like that. That is still things that are on my mind. But, even a couple of hours out, they probably will be too. But I'm pretty happy with going with Caddy, who is a midfielder and won't have to really go up too much from what he's already done. At the Cats, he averaged around 96 when you take out his injury-affected games a couple of years back. And start of last season, averaged really good numbers before he went to the more forward role at Geelong. So I think even if he does play a slight bit forward, because all players will rest at other positions at times, I'm still fairly confident that He's an inside ball winner, a hard tackler, and I feel like he warrants a good selection. So again, he is perhaps a guy that I could change, but at this stage I would say 90% confident he will stay. Jared Roughhead, very confident as well. He's got the runs on the board previously, as well as the fact that he's playing probably the most SuperCoach friendly role he ever has in his career. You know, he's getting up the ground, playing plenty of time up in that midfield area as well, which is really great to see, and just great to see him back out in the field as well, which is the main thing. Of course, there's question marks about his fitness, hasn't played for a year, but at 367,000, you just got to take the punt, I feel. Nankervis, plenty been talked about him. We all know his deal. Inside ruckman, gets his knees dirty, gets down there, gets clearances, gets tackles, can go for kick a goal. Hampson on long-term injury list. You know, Marich is nearly on his pension. I think definitely Nankervis is the main man. He'll get that opportunity that he's been dying for and didn't get the Swans. So I think Nankervis is certainly a great player to have in your side at a very reasonable price alongside Roughhead. And if we needed any more convincing, it's a backup for Sanderland. So very comfortable with that. And then rounding out your three rookies, of course, Eddie, he'll be in everyone's team, and so he should be. Butler has already been named to play round one, and I think there's opportunity there for him in the Tigers lineup, even long term. And Houston, well, he's been upgraded, which is always a positive sign. Looks likely to play, but again, we'll wait and see on the teams. You would have to say likely, but even his job security, perhaps concerning. But we'll just have to wait and see. So, look, that is my team. Of course, no Taranto. I do feel he's a trap. Just get along to my SuperCoach Traps video. A lot of discussion there about him, and I stand by that. I don't see him making enough coin, as well as the fact his job security and midfield minutes I don't think will be there like they were in the pre-season. But I'll zoom back out just so you can have a look at the entirety of my team, just as I sort of sum things up. But yeah, look, I'm pretty happy with it. Of course, we haven't tinkered too much, or I haven't tinkered too much over the last 3 weeks. There have been a couple, you know, that backline's stayed pretty similar. Pendlebury moved a little bit, of course, made way for Beams. There was a bit of discussion how my ruck division will go over the last few weeks. That's been finalised for a couple of weeks. And, you know, Roughhead found his way into my team as well, probably 3 weeks ago. So, honestly, my team hasn't changed too much, particularly since that final JLT, when I really made the decision clear-cut on how my ruck would go, which brought Nankervis firmly into the decision. So otherwise, I haven't tinkered too much. And I do endorse that. Don't go crazy. You know, we talk about discipline and strategies and structures for so much of the pre-season. Then we get to this final week and the days leading up, and we go nuts sometimes. So much scrutiny, so many podcasts, blokes talking about this, guys going, oh, gee, maybe this guy could be a great pick. Unless it really comes to the fore that they must be selected and really is pushing a great case, don't go too far away from what you've been on the last few months, particularly structure-wise. You know, nothing really changes aside from the teams. You know, once these teams come out, if we have a real scarce amount of rookies in our midfield, that may cause, you know, this M8 position to be under scrutiny if we don't have too much of an option. That'd be worst case scenario, but look, we'll assess that as it comes. So that's my team. That's Shorty Superstars. For those of you in the leagues taking me on, that's what you'll be facing early on. Of course, I've got the money in the bank to upgrade quickly to whether it be, you know, a Fallen Gawn, a Fallen Dangerfield, maybe a Shaw or a Doherty, maybe even a Nick Rewald if he falls off sort of 6 or 7 rounds in, gets down to 500, just a little bit of a more incentive, you never know. So that's my team. I'm pretty happy with it. Thought about it a lot over the course of the pre-season. It hasn't changed too much in recent weeks. Been pretty set on these guys. Happy with it. A few point of difference areas as well. So I feel like I'm pretty confident going into round one. All being well and good in the teams. We'll see a few of these guys named and hopefully a few surprises as well. A few guys that we maybe didn't expect that get a game just to ease a bit of the pressure. But we'll just have to wait and see, because I think you never quite know what these round one teams can dish up. So nonetheless, that pretty much sums it up. So thanks for tuning in. A lot of people have been really looking forward to this video, so I thought I'd do it as close to round one as possible, because then it would reflect exactly what my team would be. Really couldn't see much of this side changing aside from rookies. So I'm pretty pleased with it, and by all means give me your thoughts. That'd be great. Subscribe to the channel as well, that's always important. Probably pushing up to around 650 by the time you watch this, which has been fantastic. That was my original goal, which I didn't think we'd get to probably a week ago, but this last week has been great. Plenty of guys getting involved and on board, which has been fantastic. So if you're a recent subscriber, cheers. If you've been on board for a while, then thanks as always. Appreciate the support. And yeah, comment away. By all means, throw some questions at me. If you think my team's a pile of shit, by all means let me know. If you think I've got some good selections, of course let me know. But give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel. That'll probably be the last video, I would say, given round one's a few hours away. I'll probably, have the press conference next week and maybe an update of sorts if I felt the need. If something really big came out, maybe Friday as those final teams are named. But I'd say probably the press conference will be next. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for a great pre-season. It's been a really good pre-season for the channel, and hopefully for you guys. Hopefully it's really helped you structure your team, or at least provoke a bit of thought about the side and SuperCoach in general. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Much appreciated always, and I'll catch you soon.